Good evening. Welcome back to Boomer Rex Tonight, your nearly daily source for news and politics. First, let me introduce Mr. Boomer Rex himself.
Good evening.
Asshole.
He was staring at me the whole time and I didn't even make a noise.
I know, you were really good.
Write that down on the internet. I was good one time.
And I am RisenLadyHeathen. So we have a really interesting deep dive for you tonight. But first, let's dig right into the news. Surge in gun purchases was reported.
Yeah. Well, and we knew that, right? During the COVID-19 epidemic, we set altogether new records for the purchase of handguns. Well, guns of all kinds.
Well, they were locked inside all day with the flashy boxes that tell them how scary
Everything is.
Did
I
that start in
know.
2020 or?
Oh, we've been telling people how scary everything is. Oh, the gun surge.
Yeah. Anyway, so what's actually more interesting is the much larger surge in the number of guns that are recovered after a crime in less than 3 months after they're purchased. That more than doubled, right? So much higher than we'd ever seen before.
That is interesting.
Isn't it? There were 87,000 such guns. That typically you're talking, 40,000 or so. And in addition to that, there were another 68,000 guns, right, that were in the, 3 months to 7 months period.
Damn.
Yeah. So now I would propose that part of that explanation is probably that we drove a number of people into absolute desperation in the COVID crisis.
Yeah.
Because we didn't respond. We didn't look after our people. We just looked after the rich. So anyway, so they could.
Hey, man, we had to be pro-business.
Yep. Right. And they were sequestering on their yachts.
Yep.
Anyway, the point is that, if this continues, we have a very disturbing trend that people are going out and buying guns to go use them.
In the crimes.
Yeah. So anyway,
That might actually be the best argument I've heard for a waiting period. I mean, I'm usually like, a waiting period's a hard sell. I mean,
7
yes, I
months?
agree.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about the human who needs a gun right fucking now, but
yeah,
hey, waiting periods get odd for me pretty quick because
yeah.
is he wanted actively? Then hand the human the gun. Like,
I mean,
do they fit any of the other like good reasons not to hand him one? Then we're fine. I don't.
well, and since we have absolutely no mental health resources, period,
Yeah.
you're not ever going to have a list of people that you might want to consider not selling a gun to and so forth.
No, not in a meaningful.
Yeah. So.
Huh.
I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. What can we do? Let's do Omicron while we're at it.
Buy your guns to shoot at Omicron on the internet.
So several more states have
Don't
seen.
shoot at people.
Like, comment, and
even-
subscribe, and I'll tell you how to shoot at the corona.
So anyway,
Gotta buy special bullets.
several more states have reported their first cases of Omicron, typically because we've done such a bad job at gene sequencing that it takes forever for them to find that out, if they ever do.
Right.
And so now it's more than 25 states. Obviously, it's more than 43 infected, right? Delta is still overwhelmingly dominant in the U.S. That's actually good news for us. But we do have now an actual study on the actual variant. Israel, which used nearly exclusively the
The people from the thing.
Johnson and
never
Johnson.
no, that's not the one. The first
Moderna.
one. No, not Moderna.
AstraZeneca.
Pfizer.
AstraZeneca. But the other mRNA, right. Anyway, so they've used that almost exclusively, but then the Moderna results would be expected to be very similar because they're both very similar mRNA vaccines.
Well,
What they
that's the
found
question.
was that if your second dose was 5 to 6 months ago, you have no immunity against Omicron, no measurable immunity.
Go get your boosters, the internet.
Right. Now, a booster dose increased your immunity, and what they're doing is looking at the response to the, right, by a factor of about 100. And Omicron is still probably 4 times as likely right, to
Right.
penetrate your vaccination as Delta, right? But it's a huge change to get the booster. So go get the booster. And while we're talking about it, in the last month, infections are up 37%, hospitalizations up 16%, and deaths are up 28%. We're losing to
That's a
Delta.
lot.
If Omicron turns out to be as much more contagious than Delta as it looks like based on South African data, we're in for a bumpy ride.
No.
So
So we
anyhow.
might have to bunker up again.
No, I think we have to wear our goddamn masks
Right.
and socially distance and keep our bubbles intact, right? This is really straightforward. Nothing has changed. And the other thing on vaccines, God, I just love this. So they have an unidentified man in New Zealand, right? Who has been vaccinated at least as much as 10 times in a single day.
Ah, the vaccine OD.
Well, yeah. Of course, why would he be doing that? He's a vaccine double. He shows up, gives them your name, gets the vaccine, gives you the card. So now you can get a vaccine card and you can go in restaurants and stuff and so forth without being vaccinated.
Does this human actually die or just?
Absent an allergic reaction, I'd be surprised if it did him any real harm.
God.
But you get the standard thing is, we've never tested anything like that kind of dose. We don't know.
So
and if he
he
does this
probably
every
feels
day
like
for a week,
absolute crap.
yeah, I expect he does. Of course, I don't know how much they're paying him to.
Hope he turns
Get
into
a
a zombie
vaccine.
gator. I'm done. No, that's too dumb for me.
Yeah.
Yep.
F you, buddy.
The problem is if you think of the ways of saying, okay, let's put a stop to this, right? We'll have rigid identification requirements.
Don't. It's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, don't do it.
You will never win engaging your civilian population in fuck around
and
chase game.
Where did
Yeah.
this happen again?
New Zealand.
Okay, so let's remember that places like New Zealand have you need a passport card, right,
Yeah.
to be able to go to work in public places, theaters and go out to get food and that sort of stuff.
Right.
So that's why they're doing that. We don't have that here in America,
I know.
so it's not pushing people
Yeah.
to do
So
something
New
like
Zealand's
this. Yeah.
New Zealand's total death count so far to COVID,
11.
it's 19.
Fuck me. I
By
was
comparison
guessing.
with 800,000 in this country.
There's also like 14 people who live on New Zealand.
I'll look up the population of New
No,
Zealand.
I absolutely agree, but it's
There's no comparison at all. We stone failed. We're the
yeah.
worst in the world, literally.
No, us and one of those Scandinavian countries that went for herd immunity.
Yeah.
Just setting records like it's cool.
And the Russians and the
Yeah.
So I mean, we're not in first place by a huge amount, but yeah, we have
Actually,
responded
that'd be
very,
interesting.
very
I would
poorly.
be interested to know the correlation between this and countries whose population believes their government lies to them, sort of recreationally. Right? It's this sort of chickens coming home to roost of sort of the ultimate. Like everyone in America
That's certainly
knows.
part of it. The rest of it is, and Western Europe has done the same thing, right? Is that several times now we've said, "Oh, good,
Yeah.
right? COVID is
That's
behind
done.
us. We can open up," and
We shot all
each
the
of
COVID.
those led
Yeah.
to a huge surge, right? And the problem with huge surges is that whereas before you sort of kind of had it isolated in little bubbles and so on, now you have true community transmission where you're going to be exposed to it. So the unvaccinated are going to get it.
Yeah.
And apparently many of the unvaccinated have had it more than once. So interestingly, because the having it doesn't give you a very strong immunity. So anyway,
Interesting.
yeah, I thought it was interesting.
Come
Let's
on,
see,
zombies.
what else have we got here?
Yeah, we were really hoping we were going to turn into zombie alligators this time, but it didn't work out for us. We were sadly disappointed. Just
But
like the
keep
first
trying,
time.
New Zealand guy. You just roll them dice, man.
Well, and if he does turn
Let him
into a
be
zombie
patient,
alligator,
Zero.
you've got your path home.
I really want him to be a zombie. Whatever kind. I don't care if he's a zombie unicorn or just a regular ass zombie person. A slow one.
Yeah,
That's important.
yeah. Let us not have
Slow
fast
zombie
zombies.
creatures. That's the only kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want fast zombies, people. That would be bad.
So speaking of not trusting the government, we now have a lot more data
Oh,
on, you remember we had ghost candidates in Florida?
yeah. Oh my God.
Right. So,
Well, and this is at least part of why I'm so resistant to third-party talk and everything else, because that's the only thing I've ever seen third parties used for.
yes, absolutely. So anyway, Frank Artiles, right? Former Republican state representative with very strong ties to the utility industry, was arrested on suspicion of orchestrating a ghost character.
Oh, God.
And his opponent, who was one of the few prominent climate advocates in Florida, is Jose Javier Rodriguez. And he's a Democrat. And so what Artiles did was find a guy with a very similar name and get him to run against Rodriguez. But he had lots and lots of direct mail support and so forth. And so you look at that and you go, yeah, who paid for the direct mail support? Where did that money come from?
Yeah,
Right.
none of the rest of the campaign made much sense. It wasn't. This was really lazy ghost candidates.
Yep.
Oh, God.
And they worked.
Yeah.
The 6,300, the
illegal?
63, well, they charged Artiles
Yeah. No.
so,
But again, they.
with an election fraud scheme. So we'll see if they manage to convict him. I would suggest 30 years.
Yeah. No. You. have
This
to
is
send a message.
striking at the heart of America, and it should send you to prison for the rest of your life,
Yeah.
basically.
No, and the kind of corruption that leads to you really can make, right?
Yeah.
We used to joke about running for sheriff in Louisiana and Mississippi, pretty
Yeah.
much all the places, because you can make so much grafty ass money,
Right.
and that's gross.
One term as a county sheriff in Mississippi set your family for life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was partly a joke and partly not a joke.
Yeah, no, the ones who really went for it made a knowable amount of money.
Anyway, so the 6,300 votes that he got would have easily reelected the Democrat. So it appears to have affected the election.
Oh, my God. And there's no way to go.
No, of course not.
That's
Those were votes
ridiculous.
legally cast.
Yep.
Yeah,
The candidacy
they
was illegal.
They were fraudulent candidates that didn't fucking exist.
Agreed.
So they were voting based on something that wasn't real because somebody was trying to skew the
File a
numbers.
lawsuit and
Just
see.
That is
like all
fucking
those
not
kids
okay.
who saw all those memes.
Yeah. Well, let's get Artiles sent to prison first,
Yeah.
and then, right.
No,
Oh
I'll
no,
I'll
this is
tell
one
you
where
something.
definitely I want to play whack-a-mole and whack that mole
This
hard.
is why it's important when you go to the polls to either do your research ahead of time and know who you're voting for and that they are a real fucking person.
Yeah.
Or do what I did because I didn't have time to do research. I was working full time, had a son and everything, and I was
Yeah.
busy. So when I went to the polls, I brought my phone with me and I Googled each candidate. And I made sure that they were real people, and I looked at what they wanted to do and that sort of thing.
Yep.
And
I'll bet you any corporation tied up in this is going to have an intermediary who they can be like, we had no idea. We just
Well, we'll see. The Orlando Sentinel reports that this is likely part of an entire ecosystem of corporate and political entities propping up sham candidates
Oh, yeah.
for exactly this reason, right? So records reviewed by the Sentinel indicated that Florida Power and Light helped coordinate 3 separate ghost candidacies.
can we charge them for any of this?
I don't know. This is pretty new, so let's wait and see
Oh,
what happens,
God.
right? Reportedly, they made a series of transactions of over $3 million to a Denver-based dark money nonprofit, which was the one that paid for the mailings and so forth. $550,000 to finance mass delivery of political mailers supporting 3 unaffiliated candidates in Senate districts in 3 districts. So anyway, yeah.
If we really
So-
want an airship, we should set up a 501c, whichever.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, we
All
won't
right.
because we're not evil, but no,
I will tell you, I thought about setting up.
that's some rackety shit right there.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
All right, so tell us about this cat rescue. Kind of get some uplifting news here.
Well, yeah, I just thought this was odd given our experience with a cat rescue. So anyway, the cat was on a utility pole for at least 2 days.
Oh no.
And you'll put food at the bottom, try to coax him to heaven, none of it. And the utility company is saying, oh, yeah, they'll eventually get down. They didn't do anything. Well, the cat's down and home and so forth. Great. But I want to compare and contrast that with what happened when we called and said, hey, we've got a cat up on our power pole next to our transformer. 10 minutes. It took 10 minutes to have a lift truck here, right? And did they rescue the cat and lower him gently? No, they tried, right? But what they wound up doing was driving him down to about the 20-foot level, where he turned around, looked at the ground and said, screw you assholes, jumped off the power pole and ran away.
Sure.
Right? But it was 30 minutes start to finish, right? So we have this other utility company saying, well, they'll come down when they get ready.
Hey, man, if they're not starting fires, I'm happy.
Yeah, that's true.
Good job, utility company. You probably didn't shoot it. We didn't hear about you shooting anyone today.
Yeah. So my other happy thing, which I noticed after everything else I had read, the Tree of Life just got a new major branch. There's a little rare and mysterious microbe called a Hemi. And they've always been hard to find and hard to culture and so forth. And, they have little flagella and they move around and so forth and so on. Well, they have a new technique for DNA sequencing. And so they had one. And instead of needing a pile of them, they now have a technique which can do it with one little Hemi, who apparently sacrificed his life.
Aww.
But in any case, their assignment in the Tree of Life had always been, just everybody argued about it. There wasn't any really good evidence to put him anywhere.
Right.
Turns out there's a reason for that. They're a whole new branch of the eukaryote tree.
Huh.
They're different than everything we've ever looked at.
Interesting.
So anyway, I think that big branch had 5 minor branches. Now it has a new branch.
Interesting.
So, and 1 member. So
that's very
the
cool.
important thing there is every time we turn around, right, it's within living memory that we recognize that archaea were something totally different, right? Cells without nuclei that had exotic chemistry for reproduction, their energy cycle, so every time we turn around, what we're finding out is that there are all these different ways for life to be alive, right? Which I think bodes really well for, we're going to find some someday. If we're really lucky, they won't be angry.
Mm-hmm. So this was like a new form of life named, right? Because we knew about this and we were debating on what it was. And we just
never
found out.
Yeah, we had them in a jug out back. We hadn't really thrown them in the science blender.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so good job,
blender, but
little
So it's kind of
mastigotonauts.
named or singled out.
I'm sorry?
Named or singled out would probably be work, right?
Yeah, sure.
Nah.
Anyway,
And-
so he is the single member of a whole new branch.
Oh,
good
And
job.
I'm quite certain we'll find other members of that branch now that we know how to look for them.
Yep.
So, anyhow.
neat.
Well done, yes.
And there are other things that are very similar. So,
Yeah.
I'm guessing we already
Go
have
fetch stuff
seen
from
them.
the other buckets.
Yeah, but it's kind of cool.
I'm all about the science blenders.
Yeah.
Good job. This is how we learn the new thing.
Life is more complex than we ever thought
Yeah.
it was.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about this upcoming meteor shower that you've been talking about, because I want
Nice.
our viewers to be able to know to be
Okay.
prepared to go on the lookout.
You mean you don't want us to be the night of, hey, there's a thing.
Right.
So tomorrow
But
when you hear this, you'll know
You'll
some
be
stuff you
too
missed.
late. Yeah.
So, the Geminids are coming. Best time to see the Geminids is the night of the 13th going on 14th. And you want to watch from moonset to sunrise. So, that locally here, that will be 2 a.m. to sunrise
Okay.
on the 14th. So, we're going to get really cold and unhappy.
Now me, I'm going to wear a lot of coats.
I wish we could have a fire that didn't put out light.
Just last night we were sitting out by the fire. I saw like 4 meteorites. I see every night we're
Yeah,
out there. I
no, the
see at least
Geminids
3
are
or 4.
underway. So,
So
what you should expect to see is think, 30, 40, 50 an hour, right? So maybe one a minute.
honestly, the fire doesn't really put
Doesn't?
up,
Yeah.
because it'll flame up and then
Yeah.
it ashes, and while
Okay.
it's ashing, it doesn't really give off enough
Okay.
light to really.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I don't feel like it affects our view of the sky at all. I don't feel like it changes it at all.
Well, I'm assuming by then I'll be able to steal a dog blanket and sit out there all huddled up in my dog blanket, lying on my back and watch. So we shall see. But anyway, 13th going on 14th, specifically the hours from 2 a.m. to dawn on the 14th are your best chance.
Awesome.
So
So-
should be fun.
Keep your eye out, folks. We'll be out there. We'll report on it the day after, and should be fun. So.
Yeah.
Let's discuss the Michigan shooting update, because that's going to lead right into our deep dive for the evening.
All right. So anyway, it's just great, right? So they
Well,
were going to
not
have an
great. We don't like
investigation.
dead
Not
children,
sure they're
but
going,
yeah.
who's going to do the
I'm officially against
investigation. A couple of $100 million lawsuits have been filed, and now they're being accused of destroying evidence, right? Deleting social media accounts and posts. And,
wow.
No,
you
don't
know,
do
the
that.
standard list of, let's make it look like we didn't do anything wrong.
You know those. You're just deleting your ability to see them, like
I know.
the social media provider.
If
can-
nothing else, somebody will have a copy.
yeah.
So, and in most cases, yeah, the social media provider.
And if they're older than 60 days, they don't even need a warrant.
Yep. So, and it'll be 60 days pretty quick here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
anyhow, things are going right down the predictable path.
of course.
Yeah.
But that does explain some of why the school was pushing so hard, and so because early on it seemed like the DA was jumping on this hard and interesting ways, but it looked like they were really wanting to come up with a short answer, so they didn't discuss, hey, what was the school doing?
Yeah.
How'd that kid go back to get his bag?
Right?
And it's not funny, it's just
No, it's not funny when anybody dies, but again, as we say on this show, like, you have to laugh or you're just gonna cry. And there's really no other way of dealing with it, because it's just so terrible.
Yep.
But anyway, so
Yeah,
we do
speaking,
have something like good news. I don't know, like, comment, subscribe before we
We had good news. Good
Right,
news
yeah.
is the Tree of Life has a great
Yep.
big new branch.
and a cat.
and the cat
And a
came
cat's
down
been
and is
rescued.
happily home.
Absolutely.
So,
Bummers ahead.
And that
Yeah.
your booster will give you some immunity against Omicron.
We're gonna tell you a bunch of weird stuff that can kill you. It's gonna be cool.
okay, so we said about a week ago or so that we'd look into school shooting death numbers to try to comfort concerned kids, teens, and parents. So tonight's deep dive is going to be on school shootings numbers and what these numbers mean, what they stand for, and the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
Because I was very disappointed when I did the research to try to find out, like,
Yeah. How often does it happen? Yeah.
how many children, right? Because we're not going to count the adults and stuff in any of this, because we don't care about it. Not that we don't care, but that's not
I
the
care,
numbers
the
we're looking for.
internet.
But it's all
For-
being presented as school shootings, right?
Yeah.
So you're visualizing K-12,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and again, a
You're
lot.
visualizing the last time you were in a school. The thing that makes it actually scary is the idea of, oh man, if they'd shut up a class I was in, I'd have peed on myself. And like, hey, I have kids, and that's scary. It's always presented in this, like,
Every one of us has sat and thought, visualizing our typically high school,
yeah, usually.
right? What would I have done? Where would I have gone, etc.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, as I was trying to explain, the real thing here is that a lot of these numbers, they inflate, right? They add in other things that are not related, or they add in adults, when what the real number that you as a parent should have any sort of care about is how many children are killed during school, right? Like during
Yep.
school, and what percentage is that, and what are my chances, should I be concerned for my
Right.
children? And in all honesty, I'm going to tell you that the answer is, don't worry about it.
Don't worry
this
about
is
it.
This is pretty much
This is a
non-existent.
non-issue. Yeah.
But let's get into some numbers here. All right. I was debating on how I was going to go through this, but let's start, okay, with the year that has on record the worst school shooting that we know for K through 12.
Okay.
And that was the year of 2012, and as some of you remember, that was when Sandy Hook happened, okay? So we're going to look at the numbers of children, okay?
Right.
Because this year of 2012, okay, kids that were killed during school, all right, there were 23 in this entire year, and that's including Sandy Hook, which was 20.
Yep.
There was one other school shooting that happened during school where 3 students were killed in a high school in Chardon, Ohio, at Chardon High School.
Okay.
And that happened February 27th. Now, so kids killed on school grounds is at 24.
Okay. So we'll add that other one in just for funsies.
Right. So on October 19th in Chicago, Illinois, Banner Academy, one kid was killed after school in a robbery attempt. So this was not during the school day. He was leaving school. Some other kids came and tried to rob him.
Okay.
They shot him in the chest, and then he fended them off while they were trying to shuffle through his pockets. So it was a failed robbery of an 18-year-old.
Cool.
18-year-old. So anyway, if we're talking during the school day, okay, that's 23. So there were approximately 55 million children enrolled in K through 12 in 2012. So when we look at these numbers and the worst, the year with the worst school shooting ever, your kid had a 1 in 2.39 million chance of being shot and killed at school.
Cool.
Now, your kid's chances of being shot on school grounds in this year was 2.29 million.
Wow.
So, like, we're talking nothing.
So 1 in 2 million.
But again,
nothing.
Because a majority of these school shootings happened in one particular school, those numbers drop significantly if you live
look at
anywhere
any other
else in America. So now let's look at 2019. So these are pre-pandemic numbers, okay?
And I agree. I think the pandemic's going to screw numbers.
They are, but we're going to talk about all of them just so that people get sort of a general idea. So in 2019, there were a total of 3 students killed during school.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if you include the suicide of one of these shooters, okay, that's 4.
Cool.
Now, kids that were killed on school grounds, this is where the numbers start getting scary. 9.
That's not a scary number.
No, not when you're talking
55 million
2012
students.
was, 23,
It's
24.
not scary in any year, at any time, for any reason.
No. Yeah, but my point is that these are the numbers that are being thrown at people because they're inflating them and saying, "Oh, your kid this is very dangerous."
Yeah, have the cousin of the guy that does the movie voice, the one you always hire for scary ads, talk about 9 kids were shot in school.
Now, one thing I want you to read.
School, like that's the lawyers. What we're
I've got a bunch of numbers. Yeah. So now let's also discuss kids killed in one-on-one arguments of this year. 4. So 4 of these, if we're talking school grounds in general, there was 9. And if we're talking, students killed during school, the total was 4, including the shooter that killed himself.
Yeah.
So kids killed in one-on-one arguments was 4, including that one who shot himself because he was arguing with a police officer and he shot the police officer and whatever. So we'll count that.
Fine.
But that's still, there were approximately 50.7 million kids enrolled in K through 12 in 2019.
So 1 in 10 million.
So 1 in 12.6 million.
Yeah.
And that's kids killed in one-on-one arguments. So kids killed on school grounds, we're talking 1 in 5.6 million. And kids killed actually during school hours, it comes in much, much lower at 1 in 16.9 million chance.
Yeah, well.
So that's like nothing. And even if you include the school shooter on that one, we're still looking at 1 in 12.6 million.
Yeah.
So we're talking nothing.
Nothing. Every
Absolutely
year,
nothing.
it's nothing.
Now, let's discuss kids killed in sporting events in 2019. So these are arguments that happened around sporting events on school grounds, but this is a separate thing. But so during sporting events, 3.
Again, none of these numbers mean anything. They
But
aren't big
that's
enough
where
to
you
worry
get
about.
that's where you get the kids killed on
What people
school
do,
grounds.
and we
is
have
not-
kids practicing school shooting drills. And
Oh,
we
no,
are spending
absolutely.
fun.
Yeah.
Millions of dollars is changing hands over an issue that barely exists.
Right.
More kids were killed by peanut butter in schools.
Yep.
Right, but like another thing to remember is that these school sporting events, a lot, like if you look at, okay, so let's move on to 2020 and
How
and let's
many
have-
players died in school sporting events?
Oh no, we're talking about just
No,
kids that
how
were
many
shot
players-
during and after.
How many players died in school sporting events? I'll bet you it's a bigger number.
Oh, I'm sure it is, but that's not what we're discussing here today. He's going to get that number for you, and
I know he is.
we'll talk about it. So, but for right now, let's move on to 2020. Okay, in 2020, and 2020 was the beginning of the pandemic, so not
Yeah.
a lot of kids were going to school. Everybody
Right.
was real freaked out. Some schools were doing half in, half out.
Right.
So anyway, there were exactly 0 kids killed during school in 2020. Okay. Now, kids killed on school grounds, that's 3. All right. Kids killed during sporting events is 1. So that's one of the 3 kids that were killed on school grounds was at a sporting event. And kids killed in one-on-one arguments, 3. So that's 3 children, that were just fighting one another. So these aren't mass school shootings. These
Right.
are teaching. What you
These are
really need to
boxing
teach your
matches.
what you really need to teach your kid is like, don't get into a fight with somebody that might make them want to shoot you, right? Like that's your bigger concern here
Yeah.
every time. Now, in 2020, there were 48.1 million children enrolled in K through 12. So for kids on school grounds getting killed, now mind you, this is before, after school, during school, whatever.
Yeah.
We said there was 3. So it's 1 in 16 million chance in 2020. Kids killed in a one-on-one argument, that was 3. So that's also 1 in 16 million chance.
Yeah.
So again, the concern isn't being shot in a mass shooting at school. The concern is getting into a one-on-one, your kid getting into a one-on-one argument with somebody and being shot because that person's scared or they're, whatever the situation might be. So there's your concern. And again, sporting events, kids that were shot is 1 in 4.8 million chance in 2020. Now in 2021, there was also about 48.1 million enrolled in K through 12. It was pretty similar numbers. So students killed during school were 7. Okay. So that's a 1 in 6.8 million chance. Okay. Kids killed on school grounds is 10. So that's a 1 in 4.8 million chance. And then kids killed during sporting events was 1. So it's 1.48, 48.1 million. Kids killed in one-on-one argument, there was 3 of those out of the 10, we'll say 10, school grounds. So that's 1 in 16 million chance.
Yeah.
So again, like the one you need to worry about is the one-on-one argument, because the chances of your kid being killed in a random mass school shooting, which does not happen,
Right.
is very
Absolutely.
like it's almost non-existent. But if you do your research, if you try to look this up, what they do is they try to stack, these numbers. So they add, on school grounds, and they make it like, oh, if your kid goes to school. No. A lot of these happen midnight. Some of them happen,
That was the one I
school.
found most interesting. You ran into was the kid shot at 1 a.m. at school, and I don't think that's school related.
No. And that kid, the poor kid that got robbed and shot after school.
Yeah.
But again, that's not your kid in a regular day,
Right.
going to school. Sporting events are definitely an uptick. You got to be concerned about those. If your
Just
kid,
first
if, your,
kid,
if
yeah.
your kid gets into an argument, or if there's like between team issues,
Yeah.
that's where a lot of these
Well, you
things
teach them to
happen.
stay out of fights on school grounds. The point is, these don't happen. These numbers are meaningless.
Right.
The weirdness
So-
of odds like this is 1 in 7 million is the same number of people die from being a left-handed person who misuses right-handed products.
But
Okay.
but you can go to other websites, right? And you're gonna find
yeah.
numbers that are significantly different than this. So
Yeah.
what I'm trying to get at is that they add university shootings.
Oh, yeah.
They include adults.
Yeah.
Okay. They include people
Anything they
who are
can
not
get.
enrolled in these schools, so they're not students. Okay. They include all these different factors. Okay. After school events and all that stuff, which
Yeah.
is not related to your child on a regular daily basis going to school.
Yeah.
So these are the numbers which you should be concerned
It-
about.
It's the same way the
And
FBI
again-
fudged their numbers on mass shootings by changing the definition
Yep.
to include a bunch more.
Exactly. So when you go to these other websites
less.
and they give you these numbers, you need to research them, because the numbers I'm giving you, I looked through on Wikipedia, and I went through each and every
Yep.
event that happened that was considered a school shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
You hold
just
the
looked
power
at
of framing.
deaths
Yep.
of children,
Yeah.
and during
No, but that's why
collapse-
you will never hear about the number of people who die in gun deaths in the United States annually, because 60% of those are suicides.
Yeah.
There's a way to make any number look better or sound scarier depending on what
Well,
you're trying to
and
drive
assault
humans.
weapons are the big problem, and yet assault weapons are never used to kill anybody. Never.
Yeah, so let's get into some other statistics so you can look at the ones we just gave you and kind of have an idea. So your chances of being killed, not bit, killed by a shark is 1 in 3.7 million.
Yeah. About
So
the
your
same.
kid's going to get killed by a shark twice or more, depending on the school year,
Before they get killed in their school
before they're going to get killed in a school shooting.
Yeah.
Struck by lightning is actually really high at 1 in 500,000. Your kid
Yes.
could get struck by lightning like 50 times before you're ever going to have to worry about a school shooting.
Yeah.
Chances of winning the lottery outright, so winning the whole jackpot, is 1 in 13.9 million. Your kid
That's
is
similar to some of the numbers.
your kid is still far less likely to be shot at school in most cases
Than to win the lottery,
than
yeah.
for you to win the lottery. Chances of drowning are 1 in 1,117. Suicide is 1 in 88 over a lifetime. Okay, so
Yeah.
this is over a lifetime. Bit by a dog is 1 in 70. I feel like that's yearly, but like we're talking any sort of a dog bite. Okay. You went down to
Not
pet
eaten.
Fluffy, scratched it the wrong way, or it was hurt and it bit you, like whatever. So that's nothing. But
So there's one more thing you can worry less about the internet. So that's like an unbummer. So you owe us $1.
Yeah.
yeah, no, my point of like looking at these numbers is I thought this was going to be a real simple thing. It turned into, once again, hours of, digging
I do
through
kind of like
everything.
when you're doing research and it annoys you because there isn't just no, that's a really simple question. Someone should know that.
Yep.
Yeah. No, and again,
That
just,
should not require research and taking 4 pages of notes and
well, trying to find the 2012 numbers of like how many children were enrolled in school in K through 12 for 2012.
Yeah.
That number was impossible. All I could find was estimates of what might be. I could not find a solid number of how many kids were potentially enrolled in school during that year. So the number I found was 55 million. That's just
you're
what
going to
we
be on
went
so many lists by the end of this.
Again,
How many kids are in America?
with roughly 300 million Americans, right? Your school days are roughly 1/6 of your life, so about 50 million students.
Yeah.
Period. That's the only calculation you ever need to do. You don't need anything beyond that.
Well, and it's dropped recently due to COVID and such, so it'll slowly eke its way back.
48
up, but
million and 55 million are the same number.
I would argue different, but sure. Like let's
They're both
let's call
exactly equal
4
to
million,
50 million.
5 million different. Well, we're
Right?
talking.
None of these numbers are accurate within 20%. So pick a nice round number somewhere in the middle of the spectrum and drive on. But the point is, your kids are not going to die in a school shooting.
No.
It's not going to happen.
No.
Right? When it does happen, it's awful for the families involved.
No, it's
And
terrible.
I can't even imagine. But the point is, it never happens. Stop worrying about it.
And if you're a Sandy Hook denier, go to fucking hell.
Do we know what the odds of being killed by a meteorite are?
No, it's 1 in 700,000.
That's in a lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's slightly better than being struck by lightning.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and for back to answers to your question, kids that die in sporting events,
Yeah.
12,175
A year?
a year.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So
So-
if you want to keep kids alive, if that's the net positive we're looking for, cancel sports.
Holy shit.
Yep.
That's 1,000 times more likely to die.
Your kid's
in
gonna
a
get killed by a sports ball wildly before they get
Before
killed
they're
by
gonna
a
get
flash
shot,
drive.
1,000
in,
times
before they're
more
gonna
likely
get shot and die.
to die
in
in
a
a,
school
in a school sporting event, on a school team,
On a field.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Playing.
Yeah.
Each year, nearly 9.2 million children aged 0 to 19 years are seen in emergency departments for injuries,
Okay.
and 12,175 children die as a result of being injured.
So,
Okay.
talking about the sports injuries.
Well, we're not sure if these are just regular injuries or sport injuries. There's some question, but
These are effectively on the playground.
so yearly K
Yeah, these are
through
due to
12
accidents.
Yeah.
injuries due to accidents. So your chances of your kid based on this year's 2021's,
Yeah.
Enrollment.
Yeah.
Your kid has a 1 in 39, 3,950
Chance of
chance
being
of
killed.
being killed due
On the
to
playground.
an injury, whether on a playground or sports or whatever, due
Yeah,
to injury
exactly.
in general.
So,
So that's a high number.
do you remember the jungle gyms? Did you ever climb on a real jungle
Oh
gym?
God, yeah.
Okay. So, you look at that and you go, oh my God, that's a death trap for kids.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't.
Until we made them safer.
I know. The point behind the jungle gym is that it's packed with bars, right? It's just a series of pipe cubes stacked up. And it turns out, now injuries were very common, right? But fatal injuries were much more uncommon than you would think. And the reason is when a monkey falls, a monkey throws its arms out.
And legs.
And when you've got pipes everywhere, right? So it breaks an arm, but it slows you down, right? And it slams you into a pipe and it breaks a bunch of teeth. Fine. And you land on the ground and it breaks your ankle, but it didn't kill you because you rattled down through it.
Right.
Because of what monkeys do when they fall is they throw all their limbs outward, right?
Get tangled up in something.
Get tangled up in something. Don't fall out of the damn tree.
Yeah.
Right? And it's totally built in. If you hold a baby and lower them suddenly, they'll throw their arms and legs out.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I just thought it was interesting that this thing that you look at and go, God, that must kill thousands of kids. And it doesn't. It hurts them. Right. Injuries were much more common. But these new ones that have opportunities for a free fall,
Oh yeah.
right, of any fall where your feet are more than 8 feet off the ground, that's the 50% lethal dose for an adult.
And that's why cheerleaders drop so many bodies.
So,
Because they're almost all of their falls are from a bigger height than that.
yeah. So, anyhow,
Yeah, if you love your little girl, don't let her get into cheerleading because she could paralyze herself for life if she doesn't get murdered outright.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, cheerleading is fucking dangerous shit, and it is not regulated at all. They don't even consider it a sport, even though I would argue that a lot of cheerleaders do a lot more sporting type things than your average,
So anyway, if you're worried about your child, right, first of all, right, worry about them at recess, worry about them if they play sports at the school,
Sports
but
of
don't
any
worry
kind,
about them
yeah.
being shot, right? Worry about them drowning. Worry about them dying in an automobile accident.
Oh,
Suicide. Yeah. No.
Yeah, even suicide is wildly bigger than any of this. Right. So don't spend your time telling your kids about run, fight, hide, or run, hide, fight. It's talk to them and be sure they don't have a reason for suicide.
Yeah.
Right. And they'll love the attention.
No, and
Anyway.
kind of sort of my intent was to like, you know, again, I was very disappointed that this wasn't as straightforward as I was hoping it would be, because I read several different websites. Some of them were skewed wildly in one direction. Some were skewed wildly in the other.
Yeah.
So I said, fuck it. And I went through
your own
myself
research.
and I did my own
Yeah.
research, and I looked up each shooting that didn't have a detailed explanation of what happened to see where it happened, when it happened, why it happened.
Yeah.
And that's how I found these numbers for you. And again, you can find them yourself. The Wikipedia has the list of all the way back to 2000 and possibly earlier. I looked at there's a thing that says 21st century. That's what I was looking at. So from 2000 all the way to 2021, it's got a list of every shooting that happened on a school. It includes universities, which I of course skipped over because we're talking K through 12. Because this is where parents are concerned.
Yeah.
Well,
because otherwise you're going to spend most of your time talking about Virginia Tech and the Texas Tower shooting.
Yeah.
Right. And the worst part is that some of the things that I had to include on this because it happened during school at whatever, was like there was one incident where a kid was showing a group of kids, hey, look, I got this gun. And he was young and didn't know what he was doing. And he accidentally shot his friend.
Yep.
But it was an accident. But this kid's now in jail forever. And it's just really sad.
12
both
years for
sides.
manslaughter.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it just sucks. But I had to include that because it happened during school day. And
Yeah.
again, a lot of these numbers are inflated to scare you. And
If you
don't
use
listen
the
to
most inflated numbers, the answer remains the same.
And yet it's
School
driving
shootings are-
policy. So
It is-
the
no,
fact
it
that
is.
it's dumb doesn't matter.
Okay.
I love that smart people seem to think that the dumb people aren't just going to win by dint of numbers.
Yeah. No, we are trying to spread awareness here so that people, when their friends come to them saying, oh my God, did you hear? There's another school shooting.
No, and we've seen our
Calm
friends
down.
when they're scared because their kids got put through a training thing for this when they should be trained the Heimlich maneuver. More kids probably died from failing to chew their food properly.
No, I guarantee you that's true.
Oh,
As you said, more kids died from peanut butter.
Yeah.
Wildly more.
Yeah. So no, but it's the news every right now. While we were talking, stories are coming out about 5 guns being seized. They're ghost guns. A kid appears to have planned a shooting. So, like, enough that his friend broke him into the school, and they took a picture of him in the school looking all ominous because he got expelled last year for threatening to shoot up the joint.
Cool.
So, yeah, but unless they
but
had
it was
4
an
other
intervention.
shooters, I don't care. Yeah, no, the parents appear to have told somebody. So, good job.
No, and the kids we were talking about last night that told on their classmate who was, saying weird things online.
If you want to have a conversation with your kids on this subject, here's a good one. Tell them that if they become aware that one of their friends is carrying a gun to school or talking about carrying a gun to school, they need to tell somebody.
Yeah.
I had a friend who carried a .44 Magnum around in his briefcase at school for months, and I didn't know what to do, and I never told anybody. Never even thought to tell my father, which is insane. I just, just dumb, right? But that's the thing you emphasize to them.
Well, but nothing ended up happening with that, and he was carrying
No.
it around because he was being bullied by somebody, you said.
Yeah. And his intent, if bullied, was to kill him.
Yeah.
Man, I carried around boiling water for a similar reason. So,
No, kind of sort of like this leads to 2 things. One, don't bully people.
Oh, yeah.
And 2, if you think your kid might be bullying somebody, like, sit down and have a conversation with little Timmy about how not okay it is.
most of that's not in a vacuum. So,
Okay.
the
See
parents
it?
you're really going to want to talk to their kids are too busy bullying their kids. So,
Yeah.
That's
See it,
right.
say it,
yeah.
right? And make it clear to them that, they can come to you and say, I'm worried about this, or I'm worried about one of my friends, or whatever. By the way, if you want to be that kind of parent, you have to sensibly think about, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Right? Because again, we have no mental health resources anywhere in this country. Right?
Yeah.
That's one of the problems, is there's no way to go and say, I'm worried about little Freddie. Right? Let me tell you what I think I've heard and what my son has heard and so forth. We might want to think about intervening in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Right.
and everyone's afraid to call the cops because we've seen what happens when the cops try and do mental health things. When it goes poorly, it's really, really bad.
Yeah, that's why, if you can, get in touch with the school, get in touch with the parents, try to get help for these children, because once you get the cops involved, shit, like, okay, so that one kid that got shot by the cops at school,
Yeah.
it was reported he was carrying a gun, but again, I don't know. It seemed that he got into an argument with these officers about the fact that he was carrying a gun, or whatever, and that's what led to the shooting.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know what the details are as far as what led to the argument with the officer and that sort of thing, but
Yeah.
maybe this kid didn't have to die. Maybe he was worried
Maybe.
and was carrying the gun for his own protection, and this was overblown. I don't know. But I think what we should be concerned about is, why are our kids bringing guns to school? Why do they have access to guns?
Yeah, there's a better question.
How do we stop that? And how do we help with the mental health? So
Gun
there's
safe,
several different
gun locks.
layers.
Yeah.
Right. There's
Yeah.
several different layers here that should be
All of which
handled.
make more sense than teaching kids to
Yeah.
run, hide, fight.
Right.
And to barricade doors and all the
Yeah.
various other things. So, and trying to build schools where
Oh,
you have
God.
little bits of cover sticking out behind, like, okay, but here's the thing: these kids
The shooter's going to use it.
and everyone plays enough video games nowadays.
To recognize
And I'm not saying
cover
there's
when they see
any
it.
relation to any of that nonsense. It's just, if you've ever been a child playing War in the Woods,
Mhm.
if
You
they
know to
give
hide
you
behind
concrete
stuff.
bits to hide behind, you're gonna.
You're going to do it. Yeah. All right.
And I mean, I don't know. At least like the police and stuff have grenades, so
Yeah.
I don't think any of these school shooters are ever really deployed.
Thank you for the
Grenades,
deep
yeah.
dive.
Yeah.
Those numbers were much smaller than I thought they would.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. No.
I was assuming it would be around 25 a year,
Yeah,
which
No,
again is a
It's wildly too
meaningless
high,
number.
but-
Yeah.
No, but again, like the numbers, if you go to, like, say childsafety.com or
Oh, yeah.
something stupid, they will give you the
all the kids,
inflated
every
numbers.
kid who goes to school gets shot.
Yeah.
They will give you the inflated numbers that include universities, that include
Uh-huh.
adults, that include the
So there's one a week.
suicides in a school or on school property. They
Yeah.
include all of that,
Yeah.
which is where you're getting these inflated numbers, which make people start to be like, well, maybe I should be worried.
Well, and
the
you dice
answer
them
is-
up in the right way, so there's one a week. Or I'd have to look and see how we're playing with the numbers, but yeah,
Yeah, like I think it was in 2018, they were saying, oh, it's the worst year for school shootings ever. And they kind of say that every year since then. But again, when you look at my 2019 numbers, which was the next year,
only if you count by gunshots in a school building and
know.
some other stuff that happened in some other buildings.
yeah.
Well,
I mean,
and
we were
again, the
talking
numbers are small
9.
enough that any statistical argument,
Yeah.
last year's bigger than this year, that said no.
We were talking 9 kids total on school grounds were murdered with guns specifically. Like, this is nothing.
Yeah.
Especially
Way less
when we're
than
talking.
peanut butter.
But it lets you talk to a much larger demographic because everyone
Yeah.
who has kids goes,
Oh,
oh no,
my God, we have to save the kids.
And
we have
again,
to
let's
tune in at
remember,
11 apparently. They'll tell us how to not have our kid get shot.
let's remember in 2019 we were talking about 50.7 million kids.
Yeah.
And 9. Fucking that's why are we even having this conversation?
Exactly.
Like, it's nothing.
Yeah.
And this includes every fucking school shooting in every urban area
Yeah.
and the reasons why, and it's just nothing.
Yeah.
No, but it leads to lots of really good B-roll. Right? If you're going to argue against something, you're going to want something you got film of, and they make a lot of film.
Oh, yeah.
And it's cops doing things, like it's active scenes that you can see stuff happening, and so, tragic and a misuse of the numbers
Yeah.
Time to
And,
knock it off the internet.
yeah. And this was just infuriating for me to have to
Yeah.
do this
So
Have to dig that deep.
personally by hand because
Yep.
there's one less bummer you have to worry about the internet. That's
Yeah.
why you should subscribe.
So, like, comment, subscribe, let us know what you think. If you disagree with these numbers, I would love to have a discussion about
Send me
what you think I was wrong about. Because again, you can look this up
Leave
yourself
us a
on
comment.
Wikipedia.
Let's fight.
And you could be right.
Yeah.
And maybe
And if you
I
are,
missed
we'll admit
one.
it. Yeah.
Maybe I missed one. Throw it in there, and I'll tell you why I didn't count it or
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
And again, we are literally just talking about deaths.
Yep.
We're not talking about injuries because I'm sorry, if my kid is injured at a school shooting, he's fucking alive. That's all I care about.
Nah.
And as we've noticed, those tend to run about 2 to 1, which would give you about 3 times the number, which is still an irrelevant number. It's not something to worry about. You know, you want to give your class, your kid one class on run, hide, fight, fine, right? But stop there and stop worrying.
Yeah. No, I told my son
It's like the people who are afraid to fly because of
When-
the terrorists.
Yeah.
when he started going to high school, we lived close enough that he was a walker. So I told my son, I said, if anything happens at your school, you get the fuck out and you walk home. If you need to bring friends because they're unsafe, do so. But I was like, I don't care what those teachers tell you. If they tell you to go to whatever place, no, you sneak out and you come home and I will talk to the school after. But don't. Just don't. The safest thing you can do is get off the premises as quickly and quietly as possible.
In most circumstances, movement is life.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, got to keep moving. So we hope that these numbers will help you, you know, as a
Sleep easier at
parent
night
and as a
soothe your
person
kids.
who cares, to understand that this is not an epidemic of children being murdered at school while they're trying to learn things. It's just not happening.
right.
Not all of your kids in black coats are soon to be school shooters.
And
Oh my
again, a
God.
majority of these are one-on-one arguments between two kids where they have
Yeah,
whatever.
or somebody taking care of bullies, or or a disgruntled kid who's decided to cash his chips, in which case it's probably pretty random who he shoots.
Yeah.
But again, the numbers aren't big enough to worry about.
Nope. Don't lose
Stop
sleep.
worrying.
No, but it makes
Yeah.
a really
Don't
Go
good.
grab
over
your
this.
kids and hug the hell out of them and tell them how much you love them.
Yeah. And just understand that, you know, if you have experienced this, I can't even say how sorry I am, and I apologize. I'm not trying to make light of your losses. We feel them and we apologize, but for the majority
Right now, it's being used by people who want to
Yes.
focus on it because it's an incredibly complex problem, which means we can stand around for a little while, then kind of all just shrug and be like, "Well, it's too complicated."
People
and
And we
are
can spend millions of
abusing
dollars
this.
on studies. And
we got to
silly
hire a
ass-
bunch of security experts
yeah.
to teach us how to make cover for the bad guys. And
Yeah.
So we're sorry that you have had to experience this personally. And if you would like to talk about it, feel free, like, comment, subscribe. If you subscribe and, maybe I can have a conversation with you and we can talk about your story. But at the same time, as a total overall, this is not something that your average everyday parent
Needs
should
to worry
ever really think about.
Yep.
no, and BoomerRex and I are often going to slap at things that are mongering the fears of dumb things.
Yeah.
And this is one of the times it's a lot the left that does the mongering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
again, we've already said it, but like assault weapons, if you're worried about people being shot, then you should be worried about pistols.
Oh yeah, because
Period.
I could tell you that at least 3 or 4 of these stories, it was specifically stated that a handgun was involved.
You're not going to get to.
Handgun is overwhelmingly the
Yeah.
weapon used in killing people.
Yep.
Overwhelmingly.
Well, because let's face it, you're not going to walk into a school with an AK unless you're planning on doing an actual school shooting,
And
which
the
is
small
very
platform
rare.
assault weapons are expensive.
Yeah.
So the only people that don't have them are school shooters that manage to grow up
And the
without the school
pistol is
shooting.
concealable, which is the whole.
That's the thing.
All
Yep.
right, are we done?
I do
I
believe.
think we're good.
All right.
Look how we unbummered something.
that
That
would've-
feels weird.
Yeah.
So we took something that I'm sure has given a lot of people like concern, and we hope that this has, given you some ease, and so that you're not as
Yeah.
worried about this. So, thank you all for hanging out with us tonight on this deep dive, and all our wonderful news and politics for the night. We love you all. And we hope you'll come back for more nearly daily news and politics at Boomer Rex tonight. We'll see you tomorrow, folks.
I don't know how left-handed people get killed using right-handed products wrong.
I don't.